So now we're going to delve into the main topic this week, and it's quite interesting we did this because a few of us had a few ideas about doing Premier League stuff, but I thought we'd go down the route of talking about the so-called big European clubs who are sort of suffering right now. But before we get into that, I just want to say thoughts and prayers go out to those that are injured and sadly passed away in the Palestine attacks that happened recently, and those suffering from COVID as well from India. Let's hope that people who are suffering right now in India get speedy recovery and stuff, and let's hope this virus and this massive wave in India ends ASAP. But back onto the main topic then. I'm just looking at the league table now, and for the French league, so Lille are currently top right now, and PSG are currently sitting second. And as it stands in Italy as well, Juventus are qualifying for the Europa League, which is just mad to say. And obviously, you've got in the Premier League Liverpool potentially qualifying for the Europa League as well. So the topic around this week is sort of, are the European so-called big clubs in Europe dropping off, or is it the so-called smaller teams that are getting better? So should I ask you the question first then? What do you think? Do you think the European big clubs are dropping off, or is it a case of the smaller teams are getting better?
I think it's a bit of both in a funny sort of way. Like you said with Leo, let's just take them as an example. I think I heard from a few people that obviously like are fans of PSG or watch the French league, and they said that like I think Lille were a relegation side, or they just come up, or they were like a bottom tier side, and now they're sitting like top of the league and potentially could win the league. And then that's obviously the way that they've played and how they've dealt with themselves and got themselves to the top. Same with teams like West Ham, like in our league, like at the bottom of the table if you look at it, and now they're at the top. Similarly with us a little bit, obviously, but I don't think we'll be playing any of these leagues. But the way we've come from a lower league to now sitting where we are. But then again, like you said, the likes of Liverpool. I know I don't want to, but let's take that as an example. Liverpool won the season last season, and now where they are, they're potentially fighting between Champions League, Europa League. I'm missing that completely. So I think it's a mixture of both, in the sense that the smaller teams are getting better and they are challenging and they are competing, but then the bigger teams are sort of, Tottenham
relaxed. They're sort of relaxed because they know that they'll get their money at the end as well.
Yeah, so they sort of are dropping off again, these big sides. So I think it is definitely a mixture of both. Yeah.
What about you then, Kunal? What do you think?
Again, even I think that it's a bit of both, but for Juventus and PSG, I can see that Juventus don't have a proper manager, and that's the reason they've been falling off. Even though Conte went to Inter Milan, and I knew that Inter Milan would challenge for the title, I didn't imagine that Juventus would fall off so badly. But you don't know how Pirlo has performed and we know how he has performed, but inside the dressing room, the way he is, nobody knows, and maybe he's not able to.
I think the documentary's coming out for that as well, the Amazon one on Pirlo, I believe,
so
this year.
We'll probably just figure out only then once the Amazon documentary comes out, but purely hasn't been able to do much. And with Liverpool, I think that it's just been an unfortunate season for them in terms of injuries, and that is the main reason that they are in a position that they are. Because you see that they've got their top two defenders injured, they've got Milner injured, they've had a lot of injuries this season, and they recently bought Kovac in January, and he's injured now. So I don't think that it's a fault of Liverpool in terms of tactically. It is not a fault of Jurgen Klopp. It's just been a funny season for them where they've had a lot of injuries, picked up a lot of injuries. And for what's happening in France, where PSG is second and Lille are number one, it's probably just the Mauricio Pochettino DNA that he took from Tottenham Hotspur and for bottling the league, because PSG have just been smashing it. And I remember this one comment from Pochettino before the Champions League final he played against Liverpool, and he was like, trophies are just a boost for the ego. They don't really do much for football. So if a manager who is considered to be a top manager in the world, and somebody who is taking on a job like PSG, somebody who wants all the top jobs, a Real Madrid, a Barcelona, a Man United or Chelsea, maybe even just for example, for him to come out and say that trophies aren't important, I don't know how he'll be able to win any in his life, because trophies are the most important thing in football, and we see that the rivalry between Liverpool and Man United is massive because of the trophies, not only because of what happens on the pitch. And even though we aren't in the same city, it's not a derby, but then the rivalry is so big only because of the trophies. And on the other hand, yes, the smaller teams are getting better. West Ham have performed admirably this season, but again, I would say that probably for me, a reason for that is that in today's day and age, it's less about the quality of the players that you have in your squad and more about the tactics on the field. So each manager has to basically unlock the other team in certain ways, and if you're able to do your job right, you'll probably come out with a result that you wanted. So these smaller managers where we see that are setting up teams to, for example, Sheffield, they beat United and it was a proper smash and grab, and every Sheffield player did a job that they were supposed to do. So it's just about that. And this season has been very funny because there aren't no fans in the stadiums at all. So I really don't know that I don't want to make a prediction, or I don't want to say anything based on this season alone, because till last season, all the top teams were performing, all the top teams were at the top. And since there have been no fans in the stadiums, since this whole COVID pandemic, the top teams have been hurt more. So once this is over, I think that the top teams will get back to where they were.
That's interesting you say that. What do you think, Abhinav, then? Are you a bit contrasting to what Kunal Schumer said, or are you agreeing with him in a sense?
I think what I'll say is, these teams over the years that are vying for trophies year on year, success comes at a cost, and that's why you see a lot of these teams that try and win every year, win the titles. They're in massive debt now because if you look at football as a whole, it's only very profitable for owners at the very, very big teams, and everyone else seems to struggle financially just because of like the advertisements, things like that. So I think it just goes to show like why these teams were trying to get into a Super League, because I feel like they panicked during the pandemic. They were losing money, or they're not able to spend as freely as they used to. They didn't have the the monopoly over the smaller teams, and they wanted to clear their debt. So I think a lot of the big teams now these days are in a heap of financial trouble, and I think that's why you're seeing some of these smaller teams who are spending well, who are investing in youth and scouting and just being very smart. Like I'll give you an example. Like a very well run club is Leicester, in that they brought in the right manager for the players that they have, and the players that they bought for the manager suit them like fit them like a glove. So I think you'll start to see some teams like Leicester break the big six mold in the Premier League. Maybe replace a team like Arsenal or Tottenham in that regard. But football hasn't changed over the years. If you want to be successful, you're going to have to spend money, and that and whether you get that money back isn't guaranteed. Even when you're winning, you see some teams like Arsenal, for example, they didn't really want to compete for the trophies because if you say win the trophies, then you have to pay the players bonuses, extra fees in their contract that they were given. So they're just they're more than happy with top four. So they rather settle for top four, get the 70 million from entering the Champions League, and just settle on that. And I think if you see like Liverpool in the last year, they won the league, they won the Champions League the year before, but they're only making a profit of what, 70 million pounds just from all that in the past year, because of the pandemic. And that just goes to show, even when we're at our most successful, the margins that we're like making profit are very small compared to when we were just getting top four and competing. So I don't think we'll see a complete shift where we see like all the big teams finally start to catch up, but we will see like a small shift in some teams breaking in while others are getting debt. So like maybe like like an Everton or a Leicester who look like they're heading in the right direction might trouble a few of the teams struggling financially.
Yeah, because it's good that you mentioned teams like Leicester and Everton, because it's strange, because from my perspective I kind of think this is going off like history and stuff of what's happened in the past. I think it's kind of the big teams sort of falling off rather than the smaller teams sort of going up, because you notice as well, like whenever there was a quality player for like a smaller-ish team, the big club will go buy them straight up and then just put them in the team and they'll succeed through that. And I think that that's kind of stopped in the sense, and like more and more of the small teams are gaining better players, and the fact that they're bringing them in from other leagues as well is partially the reason. But I think big clubs have just sort of stopped, and they've kind of believed in the players that they've got, except for us. Well, we spent 300 million this season, 250 million this season, but the season before we spent nothing and we relied on our youth. So in that respect, I think it's more the big teams are dropping off, with the fact that the quality of managers are not there anymore. Like you see, regardless if they won nothing or not, Pochettino and Brendan Rodgers are good managers for what they've done and what they've achieved with the teams. And you see Brendan Rodgers at Leicester, like a so-called team like Leicester. David Moyes been at West Ham. Obviously, he was at Everton as well. Held a good legacy there as well. And then even one name that stands out to me who did exceptionally well was Roy Hodgson with Fulham as well. This was way back. Like he achieved a lot as well when he got criticised a lot, but then moved on to Liverpool. Obviously, it didn't work out for him there. But I just feel like it's more of the big teams dropping off, and the fact that the Super Leagues happen now, I think it's sort of shot their confidence, and I feel like these smaller teams will break through more and more. Like I've touched upon with Everton, Leicester, and potentially West Ham as well. Even I can even see, I wouldn't be surprised if Leeds sort of break through in that sense. I'm not saying they would be the top 16, but I feel like they'll go to where Everton and Leicester are currently at right now in the future, perhaps. But then I could see Arsenal and Tottenham regressing in the sense, because they're not the clubs that you used to be. Well, Tottenham were never good anyway, but Arsenal. But with Arsenal, you have that sort of respect for them because of what they've achieved in the past and the players that they've brought through, obviously, in the manager. So I feel like Arsenal going that way, but then Leicester and Everton going that way in a sense. So it's a tough one to judge. But in terms of Juventus, I just feel like I think the quality of players are just not in those leagues anymore. I think everything's in the Premier League. That's why it's the best league in terms of the quality of players, right, that we've got that are currently there. Maybe it might not have been the same 10 years ago of the quality, but what we have right now is probably the best in terms of managers as well. I don't know if you guys watched Monday Night Football, but Gary Neville made actually, or I can't remember if it was Neville or Carragher. One of them made a good point about the coaches, the best coaches being in England. And I think that's a massive factor of why England's been so dominant in Europe and stuff at the moment. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see what happens in the coming years, in the sense that will Leicester break through? Will teams example like Roma, will they break through? Maybe Lille, will they break through as well? Like fair enough, if they win the league this season, they have to maintain that over the next few years as well and do that consistently to be regarded, respected as well. And who knows, we might see a PSG regress as well. Like we will, obviously they've got top quality players like Neymar, Mbappe, but I'm just saying you never know.
They're just gonna go and spend 500 million.
Exactly. So. Yeah, well they will spend, but clubs have spent in the past and it's not worked out for them. So in that sense, it could happen. But obviously it's the French league. But
I don't think that same will happen with PSG, just because we see what happens with City. If they don't like a player, if a player doesn't work out, they have the money to go out and buy another. Probably a Chelsea who spent 250 million, you did not have more money. So if a Werner doesn't work out, you can't just ask Werner to sit on the bench and buy another top level striker, probably Harry Kane. But with PSG, they can do that.
They can.
So
do that, I don't think. I know it's very unlikely, but I think I wouldn't be surprised if that would happen. Like, I'm not saying to PSG, but to any team. Like, we've seen what's happened with Barcelona as well. The shambles they're in right now, all over the club. It's sort of like Arsenal in the sense where, obviously Barcelona have won the league recently, but the quality of Spanish football isn't that great anymore, and the quality of players as well. But you can tell Barcelona is just rotten to the core, like Arsenal is right now. So I wouldn't be surprised even if like Barcelona, maybe 1 or 2 years finish outside their top four, and then maybe, for example, Sevilla would finish third or second. And we've seen with Atletico Madrid right now, they've sort of broke that where they won the league. I think was it 2014? Correct me if I'm wrong. In that year, yeah, something like that. But then now they're on their way to win the league again. And then you see now, who's top of Syria? Is it? It's not AC Milan. Is it AC Milan?
Inter
Milan have already won it.
Yeah, they've won the league. Yeah. So, and Inter
Even
obviously
Sporting,
historically been.
Sporting
Yeah,
have won it
Sporting as
after
well.
however many years. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So they've emerged as well. Because I assume Porto win the league every year over there, or Benfica, one of the two. So it's I think it's interesting but exciting at the same time. Just that I do want sort of the smaller teams to challenge in a sense, because I think Abhinav mentioned it on the Super League debate, not debate, well, what we were talking about, that it just brings more excitement, really. The fact that we see these teams like Leicester and Everton like challenge, or maybe potentially take the places of Arsenal and Tottenham, being regarded as those big teams. But I've got a question for you guys, just generally. Do you think the Super League, with the Super League drama that's happened and stuff, do you think that's it for the big clubs in a sense, or do you think we're going to keep seeing smaller teams progress in a sense?
I don't think the Super League will have any effect on that, actually. Like, I think football, it's a bit unrealistic to expect these bigger teams to just die out like that, because football goes where money goes. So if what you're seeing in the Premier League is the big managers are coming to the Premier League because the big Premier League teams can afford them. They can offer them the wages, and that's attractive for a lot of players as well. So football goes where the money is. So to expect like our Juve and PSG, who have like an infinite amount of money, and to just drop off and and someone else to take the place is unrealistic. But also, football is just like any other sport in the fact that teams will be successful for a long period of time. For example, in F1, Mercedes have won back to back. They've won multiple seasons, but then eventually someone will come and replace them. Someone will win the league, but not or the championship, and that there's no guarantee. But if these teams like PSG who have like Qatari owners, if they dip for a couple of seasons, they'll come back because they have the money to spend that other teams don't. Say, for example, Everton or Leicester finally get the Champions League, and then they start competing. There'll come a time where they'll be competing against some other teams who have more money, and they won't have the financial capability to compete. They'll have to sell their best player, and then they'll slowly regress again. So it's normal. It's normal for teams to go up and down, but it's also normal for the teams that have the most money to stay competing. Because I don't think they may not win all the leagues. They may struggle sometimes, but they'll be there or thereabouts. They won't drop. There are some examples where like good teams drop, like Leeds or whatever, but thereabouts. It doesn't happen as often as people think it does.
Yeah, it's just strange, because if you look maybe like 10 to 20 years time, for example, like a lot of people will see the emergence of maybe Leicester potentially dominating the league, because we don't know, like obviously we don't know the future, but it's a possibility, because if they're credited as being a top 16, that's what I'm saying, like the FA Cup final for them would be massive if they get that, because it'll set them up nicely for 10, 20 years time, where they'll look back, and how we look back at the past as well. The same fans will do that and say, oh, this is how Leicester emerged 5,000 to 1. We won the league, then won the FA Cup a few years later, and then cemented top four, really. But you could argue with the Arsenal was completely opposite, and then maybe even Barcelona, Real Madrid, just because of the pedigree of the teams, the pedigree of what they've won, could be demolished and forgotten about, say, like I said, 10 years time, just because of the teams that are currently at the top right now and Arsenal not there. That's why people won't remember it as much. But obviously, fans from nowadays would remember the days of Henry and the Invincibles, obviously. So yeah, it's a bit of a strange one. But guess the only team it doesn't really apply to is Bayern Munich, because they seem to win the league every single year, and I believe Bundesliga is better than the French league, to be honest, and I feel like they should be credited more, because what teams like Leipzig, Mönchengladbach have done well this season. You've obviously got Borussia Dortmund. They're not having the best season as well. And for Dortmund, it works because they sell all the best players and they just recruit more and more and they just sell them on. It's sort of like that with Southampton. Obviously, Liverpool bought a lot of Southampton players as well, and they just kept producing players as well. Even with Leicester as well, they produced bundles of talent, really. Even you could argue Villa as well. Villa have got some quality players that maybe a top 6 team would take, to be honest. But yeah, have you guys got any other final thoughts then before we wrap this up? I just thought we'd do this because it's quite interesting.
Yeah,
talking about the
just to add to that, like you were saying now, actually made me think, like, if you look at let's go previously. Like, I mean, this has always happened in football. This has always been there. So, like, if you look at Leicester, for example, Leicester are one of them sides where, we were back playing with them in the Championship, and actually went to the game, and last game of the season they'd beaten us and they'd gone up or whatever. So they won the Championship, and then the following season or whatever it was, they won the Premier League. And I think then after that, a year later, I don't know whether it was Man City or Chelsea, someone else won it, and Leicester have not won it since then. But then, so it was basically a blip for the other teams, but for them it was, their emergent season. They came through, and and then they sold Mahrez to City, and they sold Kante to Chelsea, and they lost a lot of big players. And then
it's like those big teams get those big players from smaller teams, but I feel like that's not happened anymore, because like you said, Sean, with Mahrez, Kante moving on, so.
It's probably not happened this season because of COVID and the top teams not having as much money as they used to. So probably we'll see that happen again once the fans are allowed in the stadium.
But that's the thing. Like, I think that'll happen every few seasons. Like, for example, let's just take Villa, for example. Say they win the league in the next 2-3 seasons, and Jack Grealish is still there, McGinn's still there, Martinez is still there. Their players, Matty Cash is still there. That Traore guy is still there. Just imagine, like, they win the league. Automatically, everyone's going to try and swipe them players. City will go for Grealish. I don't know. Liverpool, Everton might go for McGinn. Like, it's just, you just know it's going to happen. Like, it's a possibility, and that is going to happen in football. Like, every couple of years, there's obviously going to be like one emergent team. I think, although there was COVID and although they haven't won anything as of yet, but like, if you look at West Ham, like you said, West Ham have gone from, well, as far as I can remember, the last, like, however many seasons, they've been like a mid-table side, even like towards the bottom sometimes, like just floating above the relegation zone. And now they're above Tottenham, Everton, Liverpool, Arsenal. Like, to be thrown in with that, with that pack of, big, huge teams, with maybe better players as well. It's kind of nice to sort of see that, like, inclusion of another team. And like, you come back to like that thing where you said about teams falling off. Yeah, teams do fall off, and City can spend 600 million, but it's not necessarily that with your 600 million or 200 million pound team, you're still gonna be winning titles. It's not, money doesn't really guarantee anything. 100%. It's like we've seen with Leeds. We haven't lost to City this season, and we scored with technically our centre back Dallas, who won the game for us the second time round. We must have got him for like 700k, like not too long ago, and like for that's probably like a player's like wage for like a week. That's it. Yeah. That's his transfer fee. And so if you think of it like that, it's all these teams can break through, and it's possibility we could see the likes of Everton, West Ham, Leicester. Obviously, they're not going to be considered as a top 6 side, or they're not going to add into the bracket, I don't think, because them top 6 financially are just too supported. Then there's no way that they're ever gonna be able to beat
fan bases as well.
And like a team like Liverpool or a team like City, for example, who have 200 million. They can just, or Chelsea can just say, right, slap out 300 million. We'll get the best players from Bundesliga, La Liga, and Serie A, or the French league, or we'll get some Champions League young player we can build. They have the resources and the money to do it, so they can do it whenever they want and then start competing. But for these smaller sides who have, they bought Kante from Leicester bought Kante from the French league, and Morris from the French league, who are technically rejects, and now they, won a title. It will happen every couple of years, but I think with football, it's always been there and always will. But I just think now it's going to happen more so, especially even though all your clubs are financially supported, is spending loads more, a lot more for players, but the results are not as pleasing as they should be in accordance with the amount of money you're spending. So if you're spending 300 million, but you're coming fifth, it doesn't really justify but then West Ham, who have spent about 60 million, they're top 5, top 6. So you'll see more and more sides getting up there, I think. But I think in football, that's just always been the case, and it always will be. So,
Yeah.
I think one more thing is in these smaller teams, they finally get good. They have a good crop of players. That's when the big teams start getting interested in their players, and then they buy all the players. So although that, I'll give you an example. Remember that Monaco team that had Bernardo Silva, Mendy, had Mbappe, all those
Bakayoko. Oh my god.
Yeah, they had so many quality players. But even though money doesn't guarantee everything, money controls everything. So the big teams see that. And that's exactly. That's exactly what you're saying. So the big teams will just pounce on that and then take all their players.
So Ajax as well, isn't it? Ajax.
And then Monaco will be left with quite a lot of money, but then they've lost all their star players, and rebuilding from that is really difficult. So in that way, the bigger teams kind of have control of where the money is going and things like that. And it is going to be difficult for a team like Leicester maybe to break through when next year someone will be interested in Fofana, someone will be interested in Iheanacho, and then they'll have to go from square one. They may replace him, but yeah.
I think from that perspective though, it's the attraction at Leicester would be there now, I feel, compared to say 2-3 seasons ago, because say for example Tottenham or Arsenal, let's just give an example of those two teams, they offer Leicester say 60-70 million for Fofana. Realistically, in terms of the process, they'd want to stay at Leicester because the attraction's there. They obviously got Champions League football, Europa League football, whatever it is, and then Arsenal and Spurs don't make Europe. So it's a weird one where it's sort of opposite.
That's the thing, though. Yeah. If someone competing for the league, say Fofana wants to win the league, then he's obviously going to leave.
He's going to leave
Leicester for that. Yeah. It just depends on the players' ambitions as well.
And it's you got we're all human at the end of the day. It's like Phillips, for example. I know I keep going back to Leeds, but I'm just taking it from obviously what I know. Calvin Phillips, for example, when we missed out against we lost to Derby, and missed out on that trip to Wembley. The offer came through from Aston Villa for Phillips, and he was like, "Oh, shall I go? Shall I go?" And he's contemplating whether to go. And this is a guy who's been at our club since the age of young, 7, 8, or however long he's been at the club, playing through the academy. He's born in Leeds, brought up in Leeds. He's a Leeds fan. So, to then think, oh, shall I just go Aston Villa because my dream is to play in the Premier League? And, he didn't in the end, and lucky for him, we made it up. But it's any player, you're all human, you're going to do it. And it's even with coming back to the smaller teams, obviously teams that are outside of the big six, Rafinha, again, that was just the scout, whatever he did was perfect because he managed to see a player that has potential, brought him into the league for quite cheap, 15 to 25 million in that bracket, and which is quite reasonable price for our club. And brought him into the club, and he's performed. But then Chelsea who have money, can buy someone Havertz from Leverkusen for 60 million, who's doing the same thing. So I think it is a sense of luck as well, and it depends on scouting, and there's a lot of factors. But obviously, if there's money there, money buys anything in it. So that's just the way it is.
Yeah, and for a footballer, it's only 10 years of career at one of the top leagues, and if they're lucky, probably 4 or 5 years at a top team. So it's more about them wanting to secure their futures in terms of the money they're earning, and also winning trophies in that short span of 10 years. So these players would always want to go to a big club. So, for example, United haven't won anything in the past probably 7 years. They won the Europa League. They won the FA Cup, but not one of the major titles. So that is the reason that we see that today players want to go to City, players want to go to Liverpool. So until and unless United make themselves a title contender, players would still choose a City, still choose a Liverpool over a Man United, because even though, yes, we've got the history, we can probably pay as well as Liverpool, as well as Manchester City, sometimes even more than them, but we are not challenging for trophies. So in a short career that these players have these days, they want both, the best of both worlds.
Yeah, it's interesting. Any other final thoughts before we wrap this up, or is that all from you boys? Yeah, no. Like I said, thanks again, guys, for jumping on and stuff. And it's been an interesting topic. To be fair, it's not the most exciting, but I feel like it's definitely developing over the past few years, as we've seen. But yeah, we're gonna release quite a few content and stuff regarding the end of the season stuff. So watch out for those. We'll be doing our team of the seasons. We'll be doing the If I Speak awards as well. The sort of in that Monday Night Football day. We'll be doing those as well. And we got loads of content coming up and stuff. So get excited for that. And yeah, don't forget to sub to our YouTube channel, as well as follow us on Instagram, Twitter as well. We're quite active on Instagram as well. We do quite a lot of stuff on there. And yeah, we'll see you guys next week, where it's the last set of fixtures for the game week. And yeah, we'll see you.